over here. Come on over here. No, you flipped me off. Come on, coward. No, no, no. Come on. You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
Master Debator here. Welcome to my first video. We're going to be talking about what everybody's been talking about this week. It's about, I was going to say, the cowards from the Texas Democrat legislator that ran away to Big Daddy government over there. So they ran away over there to Big Daddy government trying to escape from having to vote. So supposedly Texas, they're going to be trying to pass a bill where they're going to put certain restrictions on voting or new regulations. So they thought it was hilarious to run away and fleeing like they were some sort of oppressed group of people, or they're like refugees running away from this authoritarian government here in Texas that are trying to make them do something they don't want to. And so they ran away to Washington, D.C., as you can see right here, Gateway Pundit. They took selfies. It's like they were having a vacation. They didn't look like they were people running away from anything. Like they were going on a trip or anything. They even took a case of beer like it was some sort of celebration, which was kind of stupid. So they're arguing that the bill that they're trying to pass in Texas is going to suppress voting for people of color, minorities, whatever you want to call it. And as a Hispanic living in Texas, I can tell you that's BS. And these are just people trying to get attention. I guess they're trying to push the bill that the Democrats, the crazy liberals in DC are trying to pass, where they can have all the voting limitations removed so they can, I don't know, do their dirty deals again like they did in the past election. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying. And so this is what they're complaining about. So, and they're nagging about this. You have Open Legs, Kamala Harris, trying to support them, comparing this to Frederick Douglass, comparing this to the civil rights movement of back in the day. Nobody is getting oppressed. Nobody is taking voting right. Nobody's telling you can't vote. It is simple that they're trying to tell you that you need to prove who you are to vote. So we know that you voted legitimately, and the whole debacle from the election won't happen again, where people were claiming that there was certain, incorrect things happening, and also to finally say that we can validate the election and that your vote counts and is valid. So they ran away to Washington, D.C. Here they are taking pictures of themselves, acting like they're some sort of bunch of heroes and everything and whatnot, running to Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, comparing it to ice cream, civil rights, slavery, and stuff like that. When it's not true. I didn't get stuck out trying to imitate him. And I can tell you that it's quite BS. And if we can see here, I can prove it to you. Here we have the requirements for you to vote. For you to get welfare in Texas. Now you're gonna be saying, what does it have to do with it? Well, if you're they're saying that a person of color, mostly blacks, cannot afford an ID. And the three requirements three major requirements they're trying to do in the new bill for Texas is that you're gonna need an ID to vote by mail. They're going to extend voting for early hours. They're trying to extend the hours that you can vote in early voting. And come on, man, you're gonna tell me that you can't provide an ID? I want you to explain to me how proving who you are in order to vote is a bad thing. Now, don't come to me with the whole nonsense that you can't afford an ID. Because if you're poor and you can't afford an ID, I am most certain, at least 90% certain, you are getting some sort of benefit or help from the government of Texas. Mostly SNAP or food stamps. And in order to get SNAP or food stamps, you're gonna need an ID. As you can see here, right here, the stuff you need in order to prove your identity. A current driver license, an ID from the Department of Public Safety. You need to prove who you are in order to get food stamps or any kind of assistance in Texas. So you're going to tell me, as well, most people of color, and knowing from a guy that comes from California many years ago, I used to see liquor store in every corner, in every block in LA. And then most definitely it was always people of color near these places. And they were always buying, what are you trying to say, Master Vader? And people of color are drunk. It's a common thing in the big cities. And that's how having liquor store, having pawn shops in every corner. And forget California, but it definitely in Texas, in order to buy a beer, pack of cigarettes, hell, even a cough syrup, you're going to need to provide an ID in order to buy those things. And I'm pretty certain they have one. Like I said here, in order to get SNAP food stamps, you need to have an ID to prove your identity. So don't come telling me that you don't have an ID. I have met so many people that have an ID, especially Hispanics. It's like the number one thing you're going to have to go get an ID. You are nobody. You're nothing without an ID. You got to have an ID just to go check out a book in the library. It's impossible that you don't have an ID in Texas. So it's BS from them. They're just trying to push the liberal BS. And guess they're trying to do some dirty dealings with the voting in Texas. So they can probably, turn Texas around and say, hey, look, this person won more votes than the other one through mail, but we can't prove these people who these people are, or if they even voted because they didn't show their ID, and that's exactly what they want. But with this new bill in Texas, that's exactly what the government is trying to do: stop voter fraud, stop these irregularities in voting, so we can have a more legitimate voting process. And the Democrats over there running and cowering to Big Daddy, Big Joe over there, trying to protect and compare this to slavery, being oppressed. You're not being oppressed. Everybody already probably voted in the last elections, and they probably used an ID, and it was probably the most smoothest voting results of all the states in the U.S. So this is just BS from them. I don't understand what they're trying to do. They're coming out in the news. I saw one guy who was grilled on Fox, where he was literally reading a speech he had written down. Whenever he got grilled by a question, he just kept reading it on, and then it was just dumb. They have no real good reason for how they're acting. They're just trying to get attention, and pretty much they're gonna cause a civil war, and Texas will be the center of all of this voting. But the good thing is they have to come back to Texas. They think by running away, and they have done this many times before, but they're going to have to come back and vote. And the governor already said that if they don't want to, they will be arrested and forced to vote, because it is possible to do that in Texas, according to Ted Cruz. So they're just avoiding the inevitable, and this bill will probably most likely pass. They're just trying to become like martyrs or heroes for the liberals on the left. Whatever, It is stupid, crazy from them. They're just making a big, huge show. They have no reason for doing this. It's just something stunt from them, and also probably to get more attention to the bill liberals with Joe Biden are trying to pass to have the looser restrictions in voting in all over the country. Which, that's exactly what they're trying to do, get attention to this. Don't forget to like, subscribe. This has been the Master Vader. Tune in for more videos.